Chapter 11. Give and Take. On Monday, her grandmother was waiting outside Amalia's last class when the bell rang. "Shall we go?" she asked. Amalia could think of 1,000 places she would like to go, and none of them included the principal's office. So all she said was, "I guess so." It would have been difficult for her to describe just how she was feeling. Throughout the weekend, she had worried about this moment. Now her grandmother was there, so she was not terrified, but she was still afraid, not sure how things would turn out. And she had a queasy feeling as if she had eaten too much, although she had hardly been able to touch her lunch. Doing the right thing is not always easy, and you are not guaranteed of the result, Abuelita told her as they walked down the hall. Then they were in the office, and the secretary called the principal to let her know they were there. Amalia thought the secretary, who was always so nice, was giving her a stern look, and she lowered her eyes. Amalia was feeling more uncomfortable each minute. When Mrs. Armas opened the door and said, "Come in, please sit down," Amalia sat on the edge of the chair in silence, not knowing what to say or what to do. "I understand, Amalia, that you have done something you are sorry about." Amalia was relieved that the principal's tone was intended to make her feel at ease. But when she added sternly, "Do tell me about it," Amalia's confidence disappeared. She noticed the DVDs on top of Mrs. Arma's desk, and it was clear that her grandmother had already had a discussion with the principal. So, she already knows. Why do I have to talk about it? The last thing she wanted was to have to speak about the issue. She looked up at her grandmother, but her grandmother remained silent. "I did something very stupid, Mrs. Armas. I don't really know why I picked up those DVDs," she began. Realizing that the principal wanted her to keep speaking and not knowing what else to say, Amalia added an apology. "I am sorry. I am really sorry." "I know you are sorry, Amalia. As well you should be. However, that is not enough." For a moment there was silence, until Amalia said very softly, "What do you want me to do?" "There are 3 steps to complete when one makes a mistake. The first is to apologize. The second is to fix the problem. And the third is to learn how not to repeat the same mistake. That way, we take responsibility for our actions and also learn from our mistakes." "Yes, Mrs. Armas." Amalia's voice was so low it could hardly be heard. "I'll tell you what you can do." Mrs. Armas paused for a moment. It was just an instant, but long enough for ideas of all the possible punishments she had been dreading to flood Amalia's mind. "Please don't tell my parents," she pleaded, fighting to keep the tears out of her eyes. "Your grandmother and I have already discussed that," said Mrs. Armas. "And since you are going to take responsibility and your grandmother is supporting you, for now we will not tell your parents. You have apologized to me, and I accept that. Now tell me how you are going to fix your mistake, and how you are going to learn from it." Amalia thought back to the conversation with Abuelita and what the principal had just said. "I guess I have to return the DVDs to Coach Neves." The principal looked at her, waiting, until Amalia added, "And apologize for what I did." "That will be a good start. In this case, returning the DVDs unopened pretty much takes care of the damage you have done. Can you imagine a situation where having taken them, even for a day, would have created a problem?" Amalia thought about the DVDs. They were a collection on the history of sports. She had been attracted by the topic, so after thinking for a moment, she said yes. If Coach Neves had planned to show one of them on the day that I took them, she has said she had a surprise for us. At that point, Amalia was making an effort not to cry. Why do you suppose you did not think of that before you took the DVDs? Although the principal was very serious, she seemed to be encouraging Amalia to speak. Amalia looked down. She was ashamed of what she had done and embarrassed for not having thought of the consequences. I guess I did not think about much, she replied. Her voice continued to be very soft. Actually, you probably thought about many things. About how much you wanted those DVDs, about whether you would get caught. What you did not do was to think about others. Now the voice of the principal expressed her disappointment. I don't know why I didn't think about Coach Neves. I really like her, and I love PE. What you have done could get you a serious punishment. Mrs. Armas paused for a moment. Amalia thought about what a serious punishment could be, and she felt terrified again. Then she heard the principal say, "But I believe that having you think about this will be more useful to you. The consequences of our acts are long lasting. This is why I want you to reflect on how thinking of others when we are about to do something we know is wrong can help us avoid making that mistake." The principal stopped for a moment. Amalia waited, anxious to hear what would come next. "I'm going to try out something with you," Mrs. Arma said, and then explained. "I want you to think about three completely different situations where no matter how sorry you would be for having done something wrong, you could not undo the damage." Amalia looked at the principal expectantly. Was that going to be all? Then she heard Mrs. Armas add, "I want you to write an essay about each situation. Your essay must show why it is important to think of the consequences of doing things you know are wrong. Bring the first essay to my office next Monday, and one on each of the following 2 Mondays. Then we will talk again." Amalia's head was spinning. What a relief! The principal was not going to tell her parents. She was not going to be suspended. No one besides the coach needed to know what she had done. She immediately began thinking about the possible topics for the essays. Then she noticed that her grandmother was looking at her sternly, and she realized she must thank the principal. "Thank you, Mrs. Armas," was all Amalia could think of saying. But realizing how lame that was, she added, "Thank you very much." Walking to her grandmother's home, trying to keep up with Abuelita's brisk steps, Amalia could only think, "I'm so lucky to have Abuelita." And for the first time in several days, her heart felt light and joyful. When they got to her home, Abuelita reminded Amalia that there was one more thing to be done that day. While Amalia washed and sliced the large strawberries, Abuelita took out of her refrigerator. Her grandmother chose a CD to play. Upon hearing the first notes, Amalia recognized one of Abuelita's favorite songs, Gracias a la vida, thanks to life. She listened to the words of the song, Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto. Thanks to life that has given me so much. She looked at the bright red of the strawberries and licked some dulce de leche that had ended up on her wrist. She then spread the dulce de leche on one of the 2 vanilla cake layers her grandmother had baked that morning and placed the strawberry slices on the dulce de leche. Her grandmother placed the other cake layer on top and watched while Amalia spread some dulce de leche on the cake top and on its sides and placed more strawberries to cover the dulce de leche. When Amalia finished and looked up, she saw the bright smile on her abuelita's face and thought, Gracias a la vida, for strawberries, for dulce de leche, and for abuelita's smiles. By the time her father came to pick her up, the best strawberry dulce de leche cake was waiting for him.